Steel and Flame, Book 1 of the Guilds of Avlaan series is available on Amazon. If you like fluffy wolf lolly protagonists and Japanese light novels, follow the link below to check it out.
Hello, Leonardo Cornejo here, and we open the video with a question. What is a wyfwolf? A beautiful pile of fluff. Not really. Not all of them are beautiful. Rua is beautiful. But today I want to talk about why, and this is basically a bit of lore for the Guilds of Avlaan series, which I have not covered, but I noticed people making questions. So it is time to answer those questions. Why do I use the term wyfwolf instead of other terms when referring to Rua? Why constantly I use this term referring to other werbeasts who happen to be women, who happen to be females, who happen to be women and girls and not males? That's because everyone is wrong except for me. That's because I'm basically that meme of the guy in the clear side of the pool, surrounded by people who are basically swimming in their own urine. There is no such thing as a female werewolf. There is not such thing as a... And I saw someone write it like that, and that's where I started. Were-woman. And I'm like, dude, were-woman? That's wrong. Unless you're talking about the transgender. You are transgender. Yes. Unless you are talking about a transgender, there is no such thing as a were-woman. And I will explain why immediately. To understand, you need to understand what werewolves mean. What werewolf means. It means man-wolf. Yes, man-wolf. Dick wolf, like the writer. I had to make the joke, sorry. I have that joke in my brain for years. I had to release it once. Werewolf means man as in male, wolf. The etymological origin comes from the term were, which refers in Old English, and as far as I know in medieval English too, to man, or male to be more precise. Why then do we have man? Well, it's because it's simpler. Let me explain. Man was person. Back then, man meant person, male or female. Person. A person, and apparently it comes from Roman influence, comes from manus, which means hand. Basically, they counted the persons by their hands. So one man, one hand, one person. As far as I know, that's in my research, and because I conducted research for this, that's what I learned. So you had were, man, or male, were man, male person, and you had wyf, which is where the words such as wife comes from, wyf or wyfa. Wyf, man, which evolves to women and woman, basically. Wyf man means female person. That's the man in woman comes from wyf man. It basically means female person. And I am no expert, I'm no historian. I studied literature and translation, and part of that included history of the English language, which is where I began to get some interest in etymology. I research etymology exclusively for my writing, as part of the enrichment of my writing. So if I'm mistaken on something, it's probably because I found the wrong source. But the point is, wyf means woman or female. Were means male, man or male. Werewolf means man-wolf. Wyfwolf means woman-wolf. Werbeast means man-beast. With beast means woman beast. And that's basically why the Guilds of Avlaan series refers to all these basically Kemono type characters, specifically the ones that are descendants of humans, because there are other Kemono type characters, such as, for example, Shinu Kana, who is a kitsune, and she is not considered part of the man beasts. Of the were-beasts. She's a kitsune, she's not considered part of that. She is mentioned as a fox, or as a spirit fox, which is basically a kitsune. The narration, while it is in third person, it's not third person real life. Sometimes it uses terms that you are familiar with, sometimes it uses archaic terms, sometimes it uses descriptions that are not exactly nationalized. For example, if you are narrating from the perspective of Kana, she refers to herself as a kitsune, but if you are narrating from the perspective of the narrator, she is mentioned as a spirit fox. And in fact, she's not the only kind of a spirit fox in Avlaan. You have Kumihotu, who are basically vampiric spirit foxes. They are basically evil kitsune. The thing is, well, not precisely evil kitsune, because that's a yoko. More like vampiric evil spirit foxes from another region. And you have other basically Kemono type creatures in Avlaan who are not descendants of humans. The werewolves in Avlaan are descendants of humans, the wererats are descendants of humans, werecats too. The thing is, for the sake of convenience, for the whole race, I use the term werewolf, I use the term werecat, I use the term werebeast in general. For the sake of convenience, because popular culture has already adapted to that. Otherwise, I would use the term man-wolf for all the species, but then you have the problem with the fact that popular culture uses the term werewolf, and that society at large will think of man-wolf as a male. So for the sake of convenience, I keep werewolf for the general and for the males, but for the females, I use the term wyfwolf, wyfbeast, wyfcat, and it is mentioned repeatedly in the series because one of the protagonists is one of them. That's for the sake of basically making sense. Because it will make sense with the etymological source and all that. Because I could have used woman wolf. It's very correct, but it's too long. It's impractical, and it looks weird, no? I mean, if the male is werewolf, why is the female woman wolf? No, it's wyfwolf, because the term wyf refers to woman in Old English. And we go to the part where I also interchangeably use the term wolf girl, wolf woman, wolf lady to refer specifically to the wolf appearance and to make her cute. Some people use the term she wolf, which is also used in popular culture, but I was conducting research, as I said, I was conducting research to make the word cool. So part of the reason I don't use she-wolf is because I use the term we-wolf, because it's rule of cool too. One thing I like to do is investigating all these etymological sources. To find words or to alter even words, sometimes I use a name and I corrupt it. For example, some of the demons have the name of a Goetian demon, others have made up names, and others have names which are a distortion of a deity or demon from ancient culture. It's not the real name, but a distortion of it, or a distortion of a term or of a word, something like that. I use distortions of names. I don't only use the names, sometimes I use distortions of names. But in this case I picked the etymological origin and used it. Because that's how I basically come up with ideas for names or things like that. I investigate words, I investigate terms, I investigate etymology, and then I come up with an idea that will be useful. I sometimes make things up. The source is that I made it the fuck up! I really like to do that too, but I limit that for mostly a historical entities such as aliens or really weird creatures. For example, I also have some naming patterns. I imitated that from Akira Toriyama. For example, all werewolves in my setting have names which come from their own culture, which are imitations of basically onomatopoeias of the vocalizations of wolves, and they basically made a secret language around that. And their language has all these weird names, which are basically onomatopoeias of barks and howls from wolves. And they really add to the weirdness, to the rule of cool of this very specific werewolf culture, which is a lot less human than the others. And also that's why they have this detail of the black sclera, which the other werewolves, the other werewolves don't have. Werecats don't have it. Urban werewolves, which are basically more human-like, they are dog-like instead of wolf-like. They don't have it. Werefoxes don't have it. It's something exclusive to werewolves because they are basically the most badass of all of all werewolves in the setting. It's really rule of cool, and there is technically a hierarchy in terms of that. But they are also the ones that adjust less to other cultures. They are the ones that you don't see in most cities in large quantities. You see a lot of werecats. Basically, there are cats everywhere. What the fuck? There is a cat here. There are cats everywhere and things like that. But werewolves, they have their own villages, they have their own nations, they have their own cities. Most of them have basically their own culture, very independent from others. Meanwhile, and that's also part of the history of the setting. Meanwhile, basically all the other werewolves are subordinates to them. They have villages which are in the territory occupied by werewolves. And they have actually an entire organization, an entire civilization where basically werewolves are the ones in charge, and that has plenty of historical elements to it. For example, the werewolves are the ones who have a bigger tendency to conquer and organize, and a warrior culture, so they become basically this civilization which dominates the other werewolves, and not in a negative sense, but in a more like economic sense, cultural sense, and military sense. That is, they are the ones who are at the front of all werewolves. So they have their own ceremonial language, which is not used for everything. They don't have, they have words for that in that language, but they don't have a complete glossary. There are words which simply don't fit in it. Mostly negative words, because it is a ceremonial sacred language. So basically it's used for names and it's used for rituals. So they don't have, for example, things that are considered profane, considered obscene, because they don't exist. There is certainly certain words which you might find obscene, but they are related to fertility. So yes, there is a word for the parts related to fertility, for fertility rituals. It will be weird to name your son Big Dick. Because, well, big penis, big phallus, because it's the most ceremonial term. It would be weird to name your son Big Phallus because you don't know how big it will be. But when you are speaking of a fertility god and you speak of the sacred phallus, yes, you need a ceremonial term for the phallus. So yes, they do have a term for that, but it's not a term you are going to find in the books, because they are not going to use it in the books, because no one will. Unless maybe I could exploit that and give it a name as a nickname for some really arrogant guy. But the thing is, they have their own ceremonial language, and they use it for their names, and they use it for certain things. The clans, they have clans which have their name built around description of something that most of the clan is famous for. For example, Rua's clan is the smooth belt clan, because they are basically the fluffiest. they really have a nice fur, so they are the smooth belts. There is a clan called Bristol Fur, which is known for their magical ability to make the not only they don't have that nice sense of, and their fur is not that nice compared to the smooth belts. They are rather coarse, but they also have the ability to turn their fur into needles, so they are the Bristol Furs. Except for the most important clans, who are the Fangs. All the fangs don't have a description of of their mouths in them. If they are called black fang, it's not because their fangs are black colored, but because something related to black, to the black color, and the fact that they are leaders. All the fangs are basically the leaders of werewolf territories. All the other clans are subordinates to the Fang clan, unless they don't have any subordinates. In the case that they are not very prestigious and they are just Fangs, without subordinates. But all Fang clans are basically the ones with the most prestige and most authority, basically the leaders of all the other clans in the region. For example, the Kurha, which is one of the regions, their leader clans are the Black Fangs, and there are other werbeast clans around them, including werewolf clans, werfox clans. There is a whole political organization which is shown in the third book. I can't give you spoilers because the third book was recently released and it has an improvised cover until we release the physical version with the proper cover, so I can't give you that many spoilers of it. So I am explaining like roughly why you have all this rule of cool that makes sense. Everything in the story is rule of cool first, then coherence, and then all the other things. That's the truth. You have rule of cool, coherence, everything else. For example, naming patterns. Going back to naming patterns, all foxes, including or at least most foxes, not all, but most of the foxes featured. There are of course others, tend to have names related to plants, and that's intentional. As I said, imitating Toriyama. While not all in universe, not all foxes will have that. For example, the entire Shinoda clan, which is Kana's family, has these names of plants. For example, she's Kana, her sister is Momoka, another sister of her is Momiji, another is Higambana, one of the males is Komatsu. All of them have plant or mushroom related names. They are because they are basically connected to nature. In the case of werfoxes who are not the same as Kitsune, you have, for example, Jenna doesn't have a plant name, but it's close to Juniper, is intentional in that regard. But for example, you have Garland, whose name is in reference to wood garlands. His name is an allusion to plants. But for example, you have other more region-focused names. Most werecats have region-focused names. For example, you have Marinette Polnareff, who basically is both a reference to Jean-Pierre Polnareff from JoJo's, but also there is a lore explanation of why her surname is like that. But her ancestry comes from basically a family with French as their with a language similar to our world's French as main language. So she has this French name, Marinette. Or for example, you have other characters who have names symbolic of themselves. For example, this Withrat, Citri's wife, Acroma. She's Acroma because she's an albino. She has no color. And all her relatives, and they will appear, some of them will appear, all of her relatives, all of her descendants, to be more precise, not relatives but descendants, have color related names. All of them. So that's for that reason, because all of them are basically connected by this naming pattern of colors. I use naming patterns a lot. As I said, imitating Toriyama, because you imitate the great. If you are not great, the best way to get close to great is imitating the great. That's why I do it. And for example, all kobolds have mineral related names. For example, all earth kobolds, because there are fire kobolds and there are moon kobolds, which are basically earth kobolds but less nanachi and more close to the Muggles from Final Fantasy 12, but without wings and a horn instead of a pom-pom, because I do draw inspiration from other sources. But they are very similar to Earth Kobolds. But the Earth Kobolds, all of them have all of them have mineral related names. Natron, you have Galena. Well, basically, Natron, there are several, because basically both the main character in the series, Natron, has relatives named like that, and there is a cultural explanation which eventually I will publish. But for example, you have Galena. You have other kobolds with other names. I'm trying to remember them because those two are the most important. But for example, there was this one called Jargoon, which is a type of gemstone. All of them have mineral related names. That's the important part. In fact, I have some names I want to use because I was thinking of them when writing Galena and thinking of a name. I had other name options, which the idea was giving this cute, adorable baker girl, this chubby, adorable baker girl, name that was basically a very toxic mineral. I went for Galena because it's a lead mineral, but I had, for example, the idea of naming her Orpiment, which is an arsenic mineral. I had the idea of also naming her Pitch Blende, which is a toxic radioactive mineral. What was the other one? Cinnabar or Vermilion, which are basically vermilion is the color, but cinnabar is the mineral from which vermilion is extracted, which is a mercury based mineral. So I had these ideas for names, and I went for Galena because it's the one. It was the heaviest one, and she's chubby. No, seriously, it's because it was the heaviest one and she's chubby. So she has a metal name, and the idea was making the joke about how her name is the name of a toxic mineral, but she's this cute, friendly chef. So it's basically this idea of making a joke about how her name doesn't fit her personality at all because it's a poisonous name. I do that a lot. I make jokes with the names and things like that. For example, you have Ruwa. Her name basically in the sacred language means something small that is burning or shining, like a spark or a small flame or an ember. Something small that burns, something small that shines. And it comes from the fact that she's a redhead and she's small, and she was born small and a redhead, basically because his father noticed she was small as fuck, and he was short too. He was short too. The average adult male werewolf is about 3 meters tall, and he was extremely short, 1.50 meters. So his daughter was really small, and he noticed she was basically small, strong, resilient, and a redhead. So basically this small red thing, a small burning thing, that's what her name means. In fact, I also thought, well, what if she was a normal human? She's a human. Genetically speaking, she's a human, but she's a magical human who looks like a wolf. What if she was a normal human? What kind of name she would have? Ember, basically. Like in reference to the thing that is burning and is small, an ember. She would be an ember, because you can't name her Sparky. That's a dog name. Wait, she's a wolf. Well, not, but if she was a normal human. And for example, all urban werewolves who have the appearance of a dog, of different dog breeds. There are no Chihuahua yet, because Chihuahua are very recent. We are talking about more classically European and classically Eurasian dog breeds. Well, we can also count basically all old world dogs, but they have these their family names instead of a clan system. They have these noble family systems because they live in large cities. They live in kingdoms instead of being part of the clan system, and they have family names which come from the dog breed they are. For example, you have a Harrier, who is a Harrier dog, and yes, there is a related lineage of beagles. And you have, for example, I haven't written them, but basically all the urban werewolves of noble lineages have a name related to their dog breed. For example, you will then therefore have Huskies, you will have Doberman, you will have Samoyed. All of them would be families, and the non-nobles who have the same appearance will have other surnames or no surname at all. But the thing is, they have a surname which represents the dog breed they look like, because that's the thing that stands out of them. Basically, they are the most important of the urban werewolves who look like that dog breed. All these ideas are basically why the lore is like that. It's all, as I said, it's all rule of cool, then coherence, and then everything else. Basically explaining this part of the lore and why is it that way is something I wanted to do, to explain how to basically to get my work a bit more known, to explain something that many people have asked me, why they have these names, why do you use the term wyfwolf, why don't you write like a normal human being, and to teach you how a part of the creative process, to remind you that the most important part, and this is the part for you who are not a reader but a writer, the most important part of writing is research and creativity. If you have research and creativity, you can do anything. You can make a whole world, or just a city. Well, that's it for today. Have a good one.